This is a Global Player original podcast. Oh, this week's is a hoot and a half. We were contemplating the death of the town centre. People were fighting like cats and dogs. I was reminiscing about waiting for the music. The government was then, as now, trying to get us to go back to the office after telling us not to go to the office. And there was a curious story about balcony visitors. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps was also on the telly urging Britons to get back to work. I urge Britons to get back to work, he said on the telly. From his home in Hertfordshire. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps said he had commuted from his home to his office in the Department of Transport on an ad hoc basis. An ad hoc basis, which is Latin, by the way. Ad hoc means literally, don't question me, peasant, in Latin. Isn't that right, Boris?
Yeah. Wait a minute.
0345 6060 973. Let's have, who's been waiting the longest? None of these callers have got any, about to say anything to do with what I'm talking about. Tamworth. Hello, David.
Hiya, Nick.
David.
You're on about 70s comedy.
On about?
Oh, talking about it then.
Thank you.
Okay, so the American comedies, I wouldn't watch them ever, right? I just don't like it, right?
Well, you don't like Cheers?
No.
You don't like Friends?
No.
You don't like Frasier?
Don't like them.
You don't like Third Rock from the Sun?
Never watched it.
You don't like 30 Rock?
Never watched it. Rubbish.
How can you say that something is rubbish if you have never watched it?
I don't like the sitcoms. I like American comedy films like Back to the Future, that sort of stuff, yeah?
Never seen it. Rubbish.
Well, you have seen it because it's got Biff Tannen in, which is your mate Donald Trump, isn't it?
No, I restate my question. How can you know that you don't like something if you haven't tried it? You're like a 3-year-old presented with a plate of broccoli who screws up their nose and says, "Oh, I don't like it. Have you tried it?" No.
Well, it was probably just put me off. Remember the Fonz, and he used to come in and everyone goes,
that's children's television.
No, I just don't like American comedy. Anyway, right.
No, you don't like, what was it called? Happy Days. You don't like Happy Days.
No. I've never liked kind of American kind of TV shows.
Yeah, but you haven't watched them.
I like South Park.
That's an American TV show.
Yeah, I know. That's it. That's about the only one I like.
It's the only one you've watched.
It's because it's quite sarcastic.
How do you know?
Because I've watched it.
Exactly.
I know, but anyway, I want to... You were on about television and...
About?
Oh, talking about. Rattling on about 70s television.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And it sort of brought back memories to me.
Yeah, memories of bad British comedies.
Well, yes, Benny Hill. Right,
terrible.
Yeah. And how you go shopping at the moment, yeah, and you just want to go, because you don't talk to people in the shop and they're standing, and you want to get to that shelf, yeah, you just want to go and slap them on the head like you used to do with Jackie Wright.
Right, no. But that's an indication of the standard for British comedy. I saw the best of Benny Hill. This was a couple of years ago. They put it on the TV, and Benny Hill... we're done, David, thanks. In truth, we were done about 3 seconds into that conversation, but I let it run for way too long. Oh, I've never watched it, and I don't like it. Oh, never mind. Yeah, and I have fond memories of Benny Hill as a child. And I thought, wow, okay, the best of Benny Hill. How bad could that be? Very, very bad indeed is the answer. It was awful. Shocking. British comedy from the 1970s was, by and large, terrible. With the one exception that was, of course, the best comedy of all time, Fawlty Towers. That was the 70s, wasn't it? Can't possibly have been the 80s. Must have been the 70s. Yeah, it must have been. Yeah, just that and that alone. And parts of Monty Python. Other than that, nothing. Like, really nothing at all. Reggie Perrin. I'm running out. This says, good evening, Nick. The posh room in the house was known as the parlour, says Frank in Egret. Well, only in France. I think it was the front room. And you weren't allowed to go in the front room. Antimacassars they had on the chairs. And one of those clocks on the mantelpiece in a glass dome that chimed on the hour. And doily drink mats. My friend and I are avid listeners of your... Avid? What, as in insane? My friend is having a rough time of it at the moment. It would make her day if you said happy birthday to her. Her name is Perry. I'm absolutely not going to say happy birthday, Perry. My local high streets, bar one or two, this says, haven't been vibrant since the 1980s, long before the internet, multi-storey shopping malls and amp. And amp. What does that mean? And amp. And, oh, maybe it's just and. Ampersand. Shopping malls and 24-hour supermarkets. Yes. And there's, where's the heart in those? There isn't one. Let's bring the high street back. This says, your genius precedes you. You have combined irrational numbers with imaginary numbers to give a new branch of mathematics, alternative math. Stop moving the screen around. I'm trying to read it. It's like being drunk. The things I'm trying to read are just zipping all over the screen, and I'm trying to follow them. It's like if you get one of those laser pointers and you use it on the wall with your cat, it just goes berserk. And that's what it's like with me. Stop moving the screen around while I'm trying to read it.
People, machine.
I know. Your genius precedes you. You have combined irrational numbers with imaginary numbers to give a new branch of mathematics, alternative maths, if I may name it. Yes, you may. That is indeed worthy of a Nobel Prize, says Andrew. Well, as I keep explaining, maths is not a precise science. It's more about feelings, baby. This says, Nick, the government don't give a damn about local shops. They have spent years pushing people out of the centre of London due to astronomical rents, etc., but are now worried about these rich companies who may just shut their expensive offices to save money. This government stinks, says Lisa. Stinks. Well, there's certain individuals in the government that do look like they would smell a bit. I mean, I don't... I mean that in the nicest possible way, but there are certain individuals who do look like they've slept overnight in a skip. They do look like they would have a bit of a hum on them.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Mentioning no names. I mean, if you dress like a tramp, then people are going to assume that you smell like one too. I've actually got no idea what a tramp smells like. I normally keep, an arm's distance. This says, my good lady worked in an office, never bought a sandwich or coffee from anywhere. She knows how to use a kitchen, fridge, kettle and other stuff. She knows how to use a kitchen, fridge, kettle and other stuff. Well, does you knows how to use a keyboard? It says, since you're mentioning cats sitting on stuff, I remember when I was in school doing my homework, my cat would sit on my textbook and then just stare at me. Sooner or later, he would start batting at my pencil. Then, after a while, he would proceed to nuzzle my face with his nose. Who needs grades when you have a loving, cute cat? Says Jennifer. Cats. They're, if you're not paying attention to them, then they immediately demand that you pay attention to them. If, however, you are paying attention to them, then they'll take a swipe at you and then show you their bottoms.
Disgusting.
This says, imagine the feeling football supporters must get when they buy the latest season's shirt showing a new gambling company's sponsorship logo, says Joe. Well, I imagine that the feeling that they'll get when they buy their new season's shirt is that they've just been royally ripped off, spending 60 quid on 10 pence worth of nylon. I mean, come on, people. You don't need to buy that stuff. It's rubbish. And talking of hums, wear it twice. You'd have to set it on fire to stop it stinking. This says, Margaret Thatcher was famous for saying the lady was not for turning, so will Boris Johnson be remembered for turning and turning and turning, says Linda in Lancaster. Yeah, well, that is a good point. You just never know which direction he's going to charge in next. I imagine he's still feeling the effects of the virus. He looks like he's feeling the effects of the virus. But hasn't he lost a lot of weight?
No.
Not a little bit, no. It looks like he's put it on. This says, perhaps it's time to restart the Carry On films. Carry On Prime Minister would have been a great one based on the farce that is our government, says Abiola. Well, I don't think they need to make the film. We're living in it. The Carry On Prime Minister is our life. That's what we're doing now. Sid James was sadly unavailable, so we got his doppelganger.
Here we go. Okay.
0345 6060 973. Text. Actually, he's more like Hattie Jakes. A little bit more like Hattie Jakes than Sid James, yeah.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
Nobody knows who the hell he is.
You're wondering what it's all about, and I can't tell you because I don't know myself.
This says, I've managed to clear all the squirrels from my garden. Now I think I miss them. How have you managed to clear squirrels from your garden? That's just a nonsense, Anne. You have done nothing of the sort. You may think they're gone, but they'll be back. This says, we want Ken from Westminster. Nick, have you accepted the word of the Lord? Well, you can't have him. So shut up about it. This says, I've managed to lock myself in my loft as I'm boarding it out and nobody with a spare key will answer the phone. I've got you and 8 egg custards, which I took up for a snack as company in complete darkness. Wish me luck, says Adam. You'll need it, Adam. Because at this time of year, guess what decides to come in from outside to escape the cold? Huge spiders. That's who you have for company. This says, any chance you could use the farmer talking about the expensive sheep as a sound effect? The farmer described it as the best lamb I have ever seen, says Bell. Well, I don't know what I'd do with that. That was one weird sheep, wasn't it? I mean, they were talking about it like, its coat and its eyes and its legs, and it's just so fabulous. Yeah, I've seen better. That lamb wasn't that good looking. It says, Harrods at Heathrow. It's really disturbing. You can buy cheese and pâté and take it with you perfectly sealed. Why? Yeah, why? Well, in what parallel universe is it a good idea to buy cheese before you go on a flight? What are you going to do with it? This says, there's no such thing as a cute cat. They are scrounging, overfed, evil little killers. By the way, dogs are great. They have many practical uses, like killing cats, for instance. Oh, my God, says Graham. God, we can't have a conversation about anything anymore without being divided into two warring factions, can we? You can't like cats if you don't hate dogs, and vice versa. Why can't we just all get along? 0345 6060 973. I know I've been saying this for about an hour and 15 minutes now, but I do want to talk about the mask rally or the COVID thing in Trafalgar Square, and also about the getting back to the office thing, because we're about to be encouraged with great vengeance to go back out of our homes and return to the office. This says, I must have been asleep for months because I only recently heard that the education chap referred to as I've only recently heard that education chap referred to as Frank Spencer. It's so obvious. Ooh, Betty, says Tony in Inverness. No, I'm not going to do the voice. That was one of the weirdest so-called comedy shows I ever saw that some others do have them. I mean, first off, it wasn't at all funny, not even slightly amusing. It was disturbing. Was Frank Spencer, that character, was he supposed to be mentally ill? Was there something mentally wrong with him? Is that why it was supposed to be funny? Or was he the campest gay man on television? I include Shut That Door. Who was that? Larry Grayson. What? I mean, there was something wrong with that guy. Not that I'm saying there's something wrong with being a camp gay man, but married to a woman who didn't know? There was something bizarre about that, but I do know it wasn't funny. That's absolutely true. This says, if you lived on a private estate, the lease wouldn't allow you to have anything on your balcony other than garden furniture and pot plants. Says Eamon. Ooh. Get you and your private estate. This says, I think the name of the room the name of the room you were trying to think of is the living room. No. The term is interchangeable with front room or parlour, but I think parlour primarily used in the 20th century and earlier. My dad has a great stereo system in his and my mum's living room / front room, so I spent many hours in it listening to his record collection when I was a teenager, and yes, we had fancy clocks and curio cabinets, and the fireplace was in there, only lit up at Christmas time, says Jennifer. Way too much information there, Jennifer. Yeah, we used to have a radiogram. Still got it, actually, in my mum's garage. You used to have to turn it on about 3 hours before you actually wanted to hear any sound coming out of it. It took forever to get that thing warmed up. And you tell that to the kids today, they carry around 1 million songs in their earbud headphones that don't have any wires in them, like magic. And you explain to them that you used to have to choose between the 12 albums that you owned, or that your parents owned. One of which was The Carpenters, which was a pretty good album, by the way, the one with the triple gatefold sleeve with them sitting in a red car. The B-side made it to sound as though they were on a 1950s American radio station. Hey, with a DJ! And here's another track from the Stacks of Wax we got hanging out the back since 1954. That kind of thing. Yeah, but if you wanted to listen to any music, or if you, as I used to do, get up and listen to Kenny Everett and Dave Cash on Capital Radio in the morning, then you had to turn it on about at least 5 minutes before you wanted to hear it. Warm up, it used to have to do. And can you imagine that kids these days, or anybody in fact, waiting for something to warm up for 5 minutes before they heard a sound coming from it? They throw it out the window after about 10 seconds. It's amazing how used to instant we get, and we instantly get used to it, such that now, if I look at my phone, my stupid phone, if it can't tell me the answer that I'm looking for immediately, then I start shouting at it. And I know that doesn't improve its performance, but it makes me feel, actually I was going to say makes me feel better, but in truth it makes me feel worse. It's just dialing into that anger drug I was talking about yesterday. You know, you get the squirting about your brain. You know, the whatever that juice is that squirts around your brain when you get angry, or you have, you're running away from tigers. You know, that thing. Immediate, we need it. Once we've got used to having a certain speed, like the internet. The internet used to dial up. Of course, if you're under the age of 30, you've got absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. You used to have to dial up the internet, and nobody could use the phone at the same time. You could have one or the other. Somebody picked up the phone, and the internet would disappear. And everything used to come in so, like, a page, even a page of text would just take a minute to load, like one line at a time, and you'd be screaming at it. But before you had that computer, you used to have to go out of the house to the library if you wanted to learn something. And instead, you had it squirted right up your house. And still it wasn't fast enough. 0345 6060 973. Right, so I'll talk about this thing that is about to hit us. Boris Johnson is going to launch a major drive to get Britain back to the office. The government's new slogan, go to work, it's totally safe, please disregard all that stuff we've been telling you for the last 6 months. That's going to be their new slogan. It's not as catchy as their other slogans, but it gets the point across really well, no?
No.
And as an inducement to taking your life in your hands to stare at a computer screen that you could easily and more safely and cheaply do at home, the government says that if you don't do that, you'll get fired. What? As in sacked. Ministers warn that working from home will make people more vulnerable to being sacked, which is desperate nonsense. I mean, if your company wants to sack you, they can do it while you're in the office or if you're at home. They'll text you either way. It's just that if you're in the office, they'll have to get security to escort you out the building in case you try to insert a desk chair in your manager. There's a publicity campaign going to hit you next week. It's going to extol the virtues of returning to the workplace, making the emotional case for mixing with colleagues and highlighting the benefits to mental health, which are questionable at best. I mean, there's certainly negative effects on mental health from getting up tired and lacking sleep and squeezing onto a train or a bus and herring into the office, looking at your watch because you're late, as opposed to getting up when you want and relaxing into the day to work at your own pace and cuddling the cat or walking the dog at lunchtime instead of bolting down some limp sandwich at your desk for fear of being caught slacking. I mean, which sounds more mentally unhealthful to you? The government's going to provide the reassurance that the workplace is a safe place. They can, in fact, provide no such assurance because they don't know what your workplace is like. This is the problem with frightening everybody into staying in. That was the easy part. It's the encouraging people back out again that's the hard part. So the media blitz is going to focus on the supposed positives of returning to the office. But you might not take to that. You might not be encouraged with inducements. I mean, you might not like the people in your office. I mean, they talk about it as though all offices are a haven of tranquility and love. No, they aren't. A lot of people hate the people they work with. They're delighted to be doing their work from home. But the government is naturally concerned that the changes in our working patterns are happening too quickly. See, this is the problem. If they'd happened over 10 years or 20 years, if we just gradually morphed into working at home, then we would have been able to cope with these changes without too much of a financial hit. But it's all happening at once. That's the problem. Now, in 20 years' time, if we just stick with this, people will look back and think, wow, I mean, it's a good job that we did change when we did, because although it was initially deleterious to the economy, look at us now. What a better life we've led over the past 20 years. But to just get us to march back to the old unbalanced way of life, that just seems like a missed opportunity, doesn't it? But it's being forced upon us because of the negative financial effects of changing our work patterns so quickly. That's the problem, the speed at which they're happening. Not the change itself, it's the rapidity of it. So this media blitz is going to focus on the supposed positives of returning to the office, and if you don't accept them, there's the backup plan. They've got the carrot, come back, it's great, the water cooler's lovely. And if that doesn't work, there's the stick. Come back or you're all fired. Ministers have sent out messages that bosses at struggling firms will find it easier to hand out P45s to people they never see than to colleagues who have been at their desks during the pandemic. No! An astute business person doesn't make their decisions on whether they can see someone. They make their firing decisions on the value to the company. And if they don't, then they're not a very good business person. I mean, we hired Boris Johnson to be our leader, which implies that we shouldn't be left alone to run a bath. That doesn't reflect well on us. Like most that ails the planet, it's our fault. 0345 6060 973. Nobody wants to talk about this stuff at all. You don't want to talk about anything other than what I'm trying to nudge you into chatting about. Oh, well, never mind. I'll just go with the flow. Portsmouth, Ali.
Speaking.
Yes, Ali.
I'm a truck driver. My limit is 56 miles an hour.
You're a what driver?
I'm a truck driver, lorry driver.
A what?
A lorry driver?
A lorry driver. A lorry driver?
Yeah.
Yes.
So my limit is 56 miles an hour in a motorway.
66?
56.
56?
56. But when I take a car or van, or including a recovery car, they drive over 75. Or sometimes 90.
Yeah.
I'm just suggesting why the government not producing some sort of regulation to say like a speed limiter for any car in the UK, brand new cars, you cannot drive over 70 mile an hour.
Right, a limiter, a speed limiter, yeah.
Some sort of speed, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me as a truck driver.
Believe me, it's coming. Every new car is going to have some tracking device. You will be monitored from space, and if you engage in an infraction of any kind, you will be punished.
I mean, the problem I have is sometimes I have to give at least like a 4 or 5 second or 10 second in a car in front of me to give my space to, in case of emergency, to brake. But the second the car can just cut me off, just come in front of me.
Yeah. Well, keep your eyes peeled at all times, Ali. Don't forget, we're surrounded by morons. That is absolutely true.
Affirmative.
And most of them are driving cars, yeah. Some of them are driving lorries. Occasionally they're driving buses. Morons drive buses too. And you can tell if you are being driven by a moron bus driver because they drive their bus like they're that bloke who drives fast cars. Oh, God, what's his name? Say it again. Hamilton, yes, Hamilton. Thank you, Zora. What's his first name? Lewis. I think, Zora, you should come in and take over this show because you seem to have it together much more than I do. Lewis Hamilton, they drive their bus like they're Lewis Bloomin' Hamilton, charging away from the bus stop, and some old dear who's got her hands full of bags from Tesco's is being propelled to the back of the bus, her tins of cat food going left, right and centre. See? Morons.
Yeah! Dude!
This says, my name is Yasmin and I'm in Christchurch, New Zealand. What Bojo has been useless dealing with this virus? Well, maybe that makes sense in Christchurch, New Zealand, but it don't make no sense here. What language do you speak in New Zealand? What Bojo has been useless dealing with this virus? Thank God I live here now. We have a competent Prime Minister in Jacinda Ardern, or Ardern, as it's written. Ardern. Isn't that a pill for... what's Ardern for? What's Ardern for?
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it. It's for forgetfulness. Life here is practically back to normal, says that person, whoever it is. Oh no, it's Yasmin, I've read that already. Life here is practically back to normal, says Yasmin, or whatever passes for normal in Christchurch, New Zealand. This says, Spitting Image is aired and produced when the Conservatives are in power. It disappears under Labour governments. Is this because Labour politicians are boring, puritanical micromanagers who can't be laughed at, says Andrew. Well, there are more laughs under a Conservative administration. That's true. No, that's not true. There's more to laugh at. There are fewer laughs, but more to laugh at. Because, you know, when in times of strife, Laughter is all we got. And that's all we've got. Let's have a call in Bermondsey. Lavinia Grace.
Good evening, Nick.
Lavinia Grace.
Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you for making your call.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
What I'd like to say is earlier I was in bed, and I was listening to your thing about the balconies,
Yeah.
And when I heard you mention about the balconies, I actually started laughing to myself, because I'll tell you why.
Why?
To share this to the nation. Many years ago, I had a balcony, and what happened, I actually made a pond, a homemade pond,
A pond?
Yeah, listen to this, Nick. And most of the night...
I am listening to it.
Yeah. I was sitting out on the step on my balcony, and I had millions and millions and millions of frogs in my balcony.
How many?
I loved it.
How many?
Millions.
Right, that's what I heard.
Right.
Millions.
And as I was sitting on my step, I mean, at the time I had no shoes on. All I had is a pair of shorts, and all they'd done was hopped on me, hopped on my arms, hopped on my toes.
Right, how many?
And it was wonderful. Millions of them.
Right.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another thing. I'd also, the other side of my balcony was sort of rockery with soil and everything.
Yeah.
And on that side,
what was the
toes.
rockery made of?
Rocks.
Rocks.
And on that side, Nick, I had all these other toads.
Yeah.
And
how many?
Millions.
Right.
And listen to this, Nick. Just listen to this.
I am listening to it.
I mean, this was funny because it brought wonderful memories, which I want to share them to the nation and also to yourself. I used to sit there at night, also in the day, but mainly at night.
Mainly
because,
at night.
Yeah, because that's the time they used to come out.
How many of them?
Millions and billions, honestly. It was magical. It was wonderful, Nick.
Well, it sounds
magical.
Right. Well, it's not really the word that I'm looking for, but it sounds it sounds a delight.
Oh, it was, Nick. Yeah, and because I love toads and I love all animals.
All of them? Really? All of them?
Yes.
All of them.
And most of the nights I used to sit there and I used to be on another planet most of the time.
Yeah, well, that part I do believe, yeah.
Yeah, and most of the frogs used to be hopping on my head, hopping on my toes, up my legs, and it was magical.
And up your
nose. I used to be stroking their little heads.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I totally believe you. Thanks a lot, Lavinia Grace, for that convincing call. 0345 6060 973. Adderall is for kids with too much energy, i.e. kids, says this one. Yeah, I think, I think that our instinct seems to be drugs. Whatever ails anybody, there's a pill to go with it. I'm just curious about what kind of pills Lavinia Grace was on, because I'd like a fistful of those. And that's it. If you subscribe to this podcast, the next episode will get squirted up your life as though by magic on Mondays. And don't forget the other podcasts that I do. There's the one that I do with the delightful Carol McGiffin, in which Carol McGiffin and I try to solve people's problems while guffawing like seals. If you would like us to have a bash at your issue, then you must send it to the following address: nickandcarol@global.com. nickandcarol@global.com. And gird yourself for satisfaction. There's also the Whole Show podcast, which very shortly will only be available on Global Player. If you do not have Global Player in your life, you must get it. It's got all the radio stations that we do. It's got the boatload of podcasts that we do as well, including the 3 that I do, one of which you're listening to right now. Global Player is where to get the whole show podcast. It's the whole show that I do on Friday and Saturday nights on the radio. You see, we take the news and the ads out. It takes less time to listen to. You'll use less electricity, and you'll still pass out when your fuel bill comes in this winter. And I'll be back on the radio Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. And until then, I'll be seeing you.
Bye-bye.